Hello, my name's Dr. Lucy McKay, and I'm the CEO of a charity based in England and Wales called Medics4RareDiseases. Medics4RareDiseases is a charity that is educating and equipping doctors from early years, including medical students, on how to reduce the diagnostic odyssey and improve the patient journey for people living with rare diseases. Today, I want to talk about patient advocacy groups. Patient advocacy groups are an untapped but incredible resource available to the medical community. And I know this because I grew up alongside a patient advocacy group. My eldest brother had a rare disease. He died before I was born, but both my parents were keen to change the lack of support they felt with him as a young child in the 70s with a rare disease. So they started what's called a kitchen table organisation and reached out in the days before internet, trying to find people who were in similar situations, not only to connect, but to learn more, to start getting research into this condition and to start changing the environment for people living with this rare condition in the future. It was too late for my brother, but change could be made for other people. And change was made. My brother's condition now has a treatment. In fact, it's had a treatment for over a decade now. And growing up, I watched how the power of a patient advocacy group has changed medicine for this condition. And it's happening all the time. It's such an exciting area of medicine where the patients and the families are the driver for change. And I would like to share how I feel the medical community can benefit from patient advocacy groups, not just for the better support of their patients, but so they feel more supported and also they can take part in this really exciting area. So by now, you must know that rare conditions are individually rare, but collectively common. They affect about 350 million people globally. However, there are difficulties educating about rare diseases because there are over 7,000 of them. And it is unfeasible to teach one person, one doctor, one healthcare professional about all of these thousands of rare diseases. And therefore, this can seem like quite a challenge. That's why Medics4RareDiseases concentrates on giving pragmatic advice and looking at rare disease as a totality in order to portray how rare diseases are relevant to everyday clinical practice and in order to help every medical professional know what their role is in a patient's journey, whether they are the first doctor to have seen that person presenting with those problems, or whether they're the doctor 3 years down the line who says, hang on, this just doesn't seem right, and stops the diagnostic odyssey in its tracks. We want every medical professional to understand the role they need to play in the diagnosis and management of people living with rare diseases. Now, this is difficult if the medical profession don't even know what a rare disease is. And mounting evidence from across the world suggests that this is the case. There have been studies in Poland amongst nurses, and in Belgium amongst doctors. And there has been a recent study by the learning education platform Medscape of doctors around the world, the largest study of its kind, that also suggests that wherever doctors are living, they are often overestimating how rare a rare condition is and underestimating how many people in their country live with a rare condition. The UK goes by the European Union definition of rare diseases. And that's that a rare disease is one that affects fewer than 1 in 2,000 people. In the Medscape survey, which is yet to be published, they found that more than 20% of respondents in the UK defined rare disease as much rarer than that. Very many of them thinking it was a disease that affected fewer than 1 in 2 million people. So this suggests that when we're trying to raise awareness amongst healthcare professionals, we're starting at the very basics. From the very beginning, what is the definition of a rare disease? And actually, how many people in your country or your area are affected by a rare disease? Bringing those numbers to medical professionals will surely make rare disease seem all the more relevant to them. And after that, we can open their eyes to the support they can get from patient advocacy groups. Patient advocacy groups are communities consisting of patients and families and anyone who wishes to advocate for a particular condition. In the UK, groups like this are often charities, in which case all of their activities have to be for the benefit of a certain population, usually the population with a specific disease that they are supporting. How they go about this may differ. Patient advocacy groups might focus on family support, on education, on just research, or providing equipment. Or some charities and patient advocacy groups will do everything for one particular condition. Importantly, groups like this serve a community and bring them together and connect them, which is particularly important in rare disease when you may be one of a handful or the only person in your area or country who knows what it's like to live with that condition. It can be very isolating, and you may have many questions that can't be answered and no one around you can share their experience. These days, it's a lot easier to bring people with similar conditions together from all over the world, and patient advocacy groups are amazing at doing this. They are often a lifeline for people living with rare diseases and one of the few places to go for up-to-date, accurate, relevant information about their condition, as well as answers to questions like, how will this change me? What's going to happen in the future? What's the prognosis? And this is also where patient advocacy groups can be of a huge benefit to medicine and our knowledge in society as a whole. Because when conditions are rare, it's very difficult to get data on them. If you go back through textbooks, there might be one case that has been reported or documented, or maybe two. Due to small patient populations, it can be very, very difficult to document the natural history of one condition. Whereas someone who sees people with the same condition over and over again that's more common, they may get to understand a profile of how the condition tends to present, how it tends to develop, what treatments tend to help. And always, in common and rare conditions, people are going to be different. Everyone's different. But you have an idea of this norm, this middle part of the bell curve. And then there's outliers on either side who might present differently. But when your population is big enough, you can get an idea of this average and allow for the extremes. But when your population is 1, 2, 5 people, what can happen in our medical understanding is that you have a couple of cases representing a whole population. And therefore, if people don't present like the original case was described or exactly how one clinician is aware of it presenting, then that can be quite difficult for other people to be recognized as having that condition. So this is a really important area where the work of patient advocacy groups can drive medicine forward, because through their support, through bringing communities together, they are likely to have a much more detailed picture of the variety of how people with that rare condition are affected. These days, that's kind of called real world data, as in these are real people living in the world with this condition. And when they're all brought together and we look at how the condition affects them as a whole, it provides us data on that condition that we don't have at the moment. Other ways that patient advocacy groups drive the field of medicine is through the funding of research, is through their ability to fund or set up or provide patient populations for research. The treatment for my brother's condition certainly wouldn't be around had it not been for the work of advocates all over the world coming together to find hope for this devastating rare condition. This knowledge and experience held by patient advocacy groups not only benefits patients, but also benefits medical professionals. And it's really important that we don't let this rich source of information and support go unused. I'm going to go through some examples of patient advocacy groups. So most rare disease patient advocacy groups begin life as a kitchen table organisation, as I alluded to earlier, or these days, maybe more accurately, Facebook groups. These groups are set up by patients and their families and are normally volunteer run, though some may have a few part-time or full-time members of staff. Only a few rare disease patient groups have evolved into large established charities with tens of employees and large budgets, such as Cystic Fibrosis Trust and Muscular Dystrophy UK. Here's some examples of some smaller charities that are doing amazing things in their disease areas. Wolfram Syndrome UK provides patient support, but also interacts directly with the clinical teams in the highly specialised services team for Wolfram Syndrome in Birmingham. They run an annual conference and support patient engagement in clinical trials. The Teddington Trust supports people with xeroderma pigmentosum. Their flagship project, About TED, was focused on providing educational materials and stories to children who are affected by xeroderma pigmentosum to help them understand and live with their extreme sunlight sensitivity. This amazing and award-winning project has grown into a charity that provides equipment and education materials to families and schools, and also helps with clinics. Ataxia UK is a large patient advocacy group that supports people with many different forms of ataxia. It also funds research and has coordinated the UK Ataxia Clinical Guidelines. SWAN UK is a special organisation because it supports families affected by syndromes without a name. The patient is known to have a syndrome, but that syndrome's name is unknown or isn't diagnosed yet. Their supportive network brings together a community of families who understand the extreme challenges of living with an undiagnosed condition. You might find patient advocacy groups that are all dedicated to the same specific condition, but working in different ways. An example of this is within Duchenne muscular dystrophy. All of these charities are focused on the same disease, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, but are working to solve different issues in different ways. Duchenne Family Support Group provides support for families with children diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Duchenne UK funds and accelerates treatments and cures for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Harrison's Fund, Fighting Duchenne muscular dystrophy, aims to get as much money as possible in the hands of the world's best researchers working to find a cure for Duchenne. I've touched on how patient groups can help clinicians and medicine as a whole. But let's go into this in a little bit more detail. There are patient groups for many common conditions. Think of Cancer Research UK. Think of the British Heart Foundation, for example. These organisations also do a great job in the areas we're talking about in terms of support, fundraising, creating awareness campaigns and research. However, the need for patient advocacy groups in rare diseases cannot be overestimated, particularly within the clinical sphere, because any one doctor is unlikely to have come across one particular rare disease in their clinical career unless they specialise in it. This makes it difficult to build up the necessary experience and understanding of a disease in order to effectively treat the patient. Engaging with patient organisations, even just through their website, can really help doctors understand a specific rare disease better and support the patient themselves. So how can you build a relationship with a patient organisation? Well, this is a really important part of Medics4RareDiseases because this charity is here to open the door, to take off the blinkers and let you see the amazing, large, vibrant, resilient community that exists within the rare disease world, that unless you've been invited in or stumble across it, you may never know about, even as a doctor. And we've got some great ways that you can engage with patient advocacy groups. This will not only benefit your patient, the patient group, but also your future clinical practice. Many rare disease patient groups struggle to find clinicians that can provide the support, knowledge, and information that they need. However, there are numerous cases where when a single clinician has engaged in the treatment of a rare disease and worked with a patient organisation, it has completely transformed the patient outlook and experience. By supporting a single patient group, you could provide medical and scientific expertise in order to improve their patient information and service, Grow your own understanding of a rare condition and how to provide holistic care for people. Some people go on to develop their own unique clinics because they got interested in a rare disease and have found an unmet need. Or maybe you'll go on to perform research or increase the evidence base in that rare condition. So here's 3 easy steps that I'd like you to take. Number 1, educate yourself. Go and familiarize yourself with what's already available for you out there in the rare disease field. Have you ever searched a condition on Orphanet, for example? This portal for rare diseases and orphan drugs offers an inventory, classification, and encyclopedia of rare diseases. This can be really useful in order to become more familiar with particular conditions. You can also check out NORD and Eurodis's websites. NORD is the National Organization of Rare Diseases, which is an umbrella organization in North America, and Eurodis is the European equivalent. NORD has a section especially for medical professionals. If you're based in the UK, there are some umbrella organisations that might be really useful for you. There are some that are particularly genetics orientated because 80% of rare conditions are thought to have a genetic origin. Those are Gene People UK and Unique. Unique has been going into hospitals and doing grand round talks to paediatricians and clinicians for many years. Then there's Genetic Alliance UK, and under that umbrella, Rare Diseases UK and Swan UK, which I mentioned earlier. If you would like to know more about a rare condition, just going onto these websites and seeing if there's a patient group listed in these websites for your patient or that condition is just the first step to helping and getting involved. But as I've mentioned earlier, you will see people in your life with a rare condition, but you can't necessarily guess which one it is unless you're a specialist. And that's why some basic rare disease understanding is really important. A great way to get a basic understanding of rare disease is to take M4RD's free e-learning module called Rare Disease 101, which you can access through our website. And then you can read about different people's experiences and also the experiences of not just people living with rare diseases, but other stakeholders within the rare disease community. There are, of course, thousands of blogs all over the internet. I'd really like to recommend to you that you take a dive into Rare Revolution magazine, which is an online magazine that comes out quarterly. And it's a great compendium of people from all over rare disease sharing their knowledge in one place. Step 2 is to engage. Maybe this is on social media, maybe you could write a blog or attend the conference of a patient advocacy group. Choose one area that you are interested in, and now all the conferences are online, it's even easier to attend. But just start dipping your foot into the patient advocacy world. And lastly, step 3 is to get involved. Maybe you could be a trustee of a patient advocacy group. It really doesn't take up too much time, but could be hugely valuable and a great learning experience for you. Some patient advocacy groups have medical advisory boards, and you can join one of these. If you're early on in your career, you might be a little bit nervous about this, but just like in clinical medicine, you won't be expected to do anything that overreaches your training or your experience. But you may learn from more experienced or senior clinicians and from patients and advocates. So take action today. Maybe you already know someone with a rare disease. Maybe you have a rare disease, or you have an area of interest where you'd like to just learn some more or show to your future employers that you have that area of interest. Find a patient group. You can come and talk to us at Medics4RareDiseases or our friends at Find a Cure, and start today. Number 1, educate yourself. Number 2, engage. And number 3, get involved. If you are a medical student, a health student, or a biological sciences student, you can also look forward to the Student Voice Prize every year. This is an international essay competition run by Find a Cure and Medics4RareDiseases to raise the profile of rare disease in these areas of study with people who are early on in their careers. It's been going for many years now, and the winner is published in the AuthorNet Journal of Rare Diseases. The winning essays always blow us away with their insights, and they are adding to the knowledge bank that I talked about earlier that is so needed within rare disease. In 2021, we've just stopped taking submissions, but the essay competition will open again next October in 2022. So make sure you're following either Find a Cure, Medics4RareDiseases, or the Student Voice Prize itself so that you don't miss out on the next round. This is a really good example of working with a patient advocacy group because we provide the opportunity for people who want to submit essays but don't have a case or don't know anyone with a rare disease but would like to get in contact with a patient advocacy group. This is our patient advocacy group pairing scheme, and it is hugely popular. Last year, all the winners from the Student Voice Prize were those who had paired up with a patient advocacy group and had spoken directly to a person living with a rare disease. So let's recap. Patient groups are organisations that can exist in many sizes and many forms with different priorities, but usually they support a disease area or a single disease. They are hugely important within the rare disease community because of the very rarity of the conditions that they are supporting. They bring together the community in order to provide support, connection, research, knowledge, support for clinicians. They might help set up clinics, they might provide equipment or education. Really, and currently, they are an untapped resource that medical professionals could be relying on to better their knowledge and to improve their patients' experiences. As a medical professional, I urge you to go out and take the 3 steps. 1, to educate yourself about rare disease in general, why rare disease is relevant to you as a clinician, and what resources are already out there that you might not be using. 2, to engage with a patient advocacy group in an area of your choice. And 3, to get involved, to jump in and become a fully fledged member of this really vibrant community. Having watched this video, I hope that you're as passionate about patient advocacy as I am, and I hope that you will come and join us. Please never hesitate to get in contact with the M4RD team, including myself. Our website is www.m4rd.org. You can access Rare Disease 101, everything you need to know about rare disease without learning about a single rare disease. You can access that at learn.m4rd.org. And I'd also like to thank Find a Cure for helping us create this module about patient advocacy groups as part of the Rare Disease 101 course. You can find out more about Find a Cure at findacure.org.uk. Now go out there and #DareToThinkRare.